The next thing I would like to talk about is a concept called Object Orientated Programming. And this is a concept that is heavily used in ArcGIS. So we've been working with ArcGIS quite a bit, and if you notice, one of the very first things that we do is we input data. And when we do this, we usually do this by adding data to the data frame. Sometimes if we're in Model Builder, when we are ready to add data, it usually comes in the form of a blue bubble. And then finally, we usually save data that we add to our ArcGIS, for example base data, in the source folder of our file management system. So when we're adding data, we're usually adding it to some sort of controller. And this controller, kind of think of it like a game controller where we can control the flow of information between different components in ArcGIS. And this controller can be ArcMap or ArcScene or any other application that is within the ArcGIS suite. And then we usually run some sort of computation or calculation on our data to either project it or clip it, or to make other types of information such as extracting more base maps, which we're going to do here pretty soon. And we usually do this through using a calculator or some sort of equation builder. So for example, in ArcGIS we'll be using Model Builder to actually build our equation. And Model Builder is a great tool to use because it will store algorithms that we can run later. And we can also share it with others. So Model Builder is also very shareable. And oftentimes we kind of work back and forth from ArcMap and our Model Builder as we build things. And then we have our Geo Database. And this is a place that we can kind of think of as a storage container. So this is where we would store our rasters, our shapefiles, our tables, and any other pieces of information that we wish to have stored. So this is usually the result of a calculation would go inside of our Geo Database. Our clipped rasters would go inside of there, or anything else that we may want to create in ArcGIS we would store into this Geo Database. So other things such as relationships and links. So think of the Geo Database as kind of like your hard drive, where you would store all of your data. And think of the Model Builder as kind of like your processor as the computational component. So again, from ArcMap to the Geo Database, there'll be a lot of data that moves back and forth between those two objects. And finally we have our output, and this is where we create maps that we can share with others. It's kind of our final end output. And we usually do this through the layout view in ArcMap. So after we run things back and forth from our calculator and from our Geo Database to ArcMap, we can output things using ArcMap. So if we kind of look at the way that we have been using ArcMap thus far, we can see that data goes to some data storage device called the Geo Database. We run our calculations using the Arc Toolbox and Model Builder. And then we output things into maps that we can use either on site visits or in presentations. The ArcInfo suite was created to fully utilize a concept called Object Orientated Programming, or OOP. OOP is a programming paradigm based on the concept of objects, involving data structures containing data in the form of fields, attributes, and codes. So as you can see here, if your ArcMap document was to crash, you would technically still have your data, which is in the Geo Database, and all of your output, and the input is still stored on the hard drive. It can be somewhat of a pain to kind of re-add things back into the data frame and reorganize the data frame if ArcMap was to crash. You would also still have your calculator component because your Model Builder would still be there even though ArcMap crashed. Well, depending upon where you saved, you may have lose a few things within your Model Builder, but for the most part, if you save frequently in your Model Builder, you should still have your model to rebuild things if necessary, but you wouldn't have to because things are stored in the Geo Database. Now, if you did lose your Geo Database, that would be a lot more catastrophic than losing your ArcMap document.